Browns beat the Steelers 13-10. This game went about the way you expected it to. Not a lot of offense. Special teams and defense dominated the afternoon. Let's start off with the Browns because we got to talk about the winners first. I got a lot of things to say later about the losers of this game, but this was a huge win for Cleveland. All right. A couple of days ago, I came on here and said that I still believe the Browns are going to be a playoff team despite Deshaun Watson being out for the rest of this season because, for one, they got a fantastic defense that can keep them in pretty much any game that they play in. And two, their team overall is good enough to support whoever they have at the helm at quarterback. And DTR got the start today, and he looked way better in this game than what he looked like a couple of weeks ago when he started against the Baltimore Ravens. He got the ball out fast. He made pretty okay decisions with the football, minus that interception. And he's really tough. He had a couple of tough runs. He also had a play in there where he chipped in to help block on the reverse. DTR is good enough to keep the Browns in playoff contention, and they should be able to make it to the playoffs with them because they still got a really good offensive line despite being down their two starters at offensive tackle. They normally are really good running the football, even though the Steelers were able to have success shutting that down today. And their receivers are also really good as well, and their coaching staff is pretty solid also. So with all of the pieces that the Browns have, there's no reason that they shouldn't be able to win games with DTR. Now, is DTR going to set the world on fire? Probably not. But this was a pretty solid performance out of him going against one of the best defenses in the NFL, especially when it comes to their ability to force takeaways. And initially, I picked Cleveland to win this game, but then I changed my pick late at the last second. Because I was like, DTR, he didn't look good against Baltimore. He probably will struggle against Pittsburgh. And there was a moment during this game when the Browns couldn't get anything going offensively. It wasn't really due to DTR being at quarterback. It mostly was due to the fact that the Steelers defense was playing really good. And the Browns offensively, they weren't trying to push the issue with Dorian Thompson-Robinson. For the most part, they settled with a lot of quick, short passes. They didn't really take a lot of shots downfield. And eventually, in the third quarter, the Steelers defense started to key in on those short passes. And that's really when this Browns offense hit a wall. But late in the fourth quarter, when this offense needed to put the team in position to win the game, they got it done. DTR, Kareem Hunt, and this run game were good enough to get a couple of chunks on their final possession to set them up for the game-winning field goal, and that's what you expected this game to come down to. And the Browns did a really good job at winning the field position battle. That's something that not too many people really pay attention to in today's new age of football, but being able to win the field position battle and special teams is really big. And the Steelers had some really bad punts, and the Browns were able to win that field position battle for the most part. But the Browns defense, you got to give them a round of applause in this game. Because although they played well against a terrible Steelers offense, they made Kenny Pickett look even more pedestrian than what he already is. Myles Garrett was making some really big plays. And outside of that big 74-yard touchdown that they gave up to Jaylen Warren, it was tough sledding for this Pittsburgh offense all afternoon. And the only time the Steelers actually were able to have a little bit of momentum offensively was when, this defense was able to help them out. But even with the defense helping them out and giving them that interception, they went 3-0 right after that. And you got to give huge props to the Cleveland Browns defense. Jim Schwartz is looking like a fantastic hire by Kevin Stefanski. He has done wonders with this defense, and they got a really great secondary. This is one of the best secondaries in the whole entire National Football League. They were on the Steelers wide receivers like White on Rice. These receivers weren't really creating too much separation. Deontay Johnson had a couple of key drops. George Pickens pretty much got neutralized. The only thing that the Steelers had working for them in this game was Jaylen Warren. And the Browns defense was a large reason why this Steelers offense looked even more porous than what it has looked all season long. With this win now, You should feel really confident if you're a Browns fan about your ability to make it to the postseason. All right, your next 4 games are against the Broncos, the Rams, the Jaguars, and the Chicago Bears, which you should be able to win 3 out of 4 of those games, or at least go 2-2 in those matchups. And as long as you can find a way to get the 10 wins, you should be a lock for the playoffs. All right? Now, meanwhile, when you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are the losers in this game, this was the worst performance that this team has had on offense pretty much all season long. Now, of course, they were going up against a really good defense, so of course they were going to be outmatched. But Kenny Pickett looked as bad as what you can get out of a starting quarterback. At this point, he's a backup QB in my opinion. And I wouldn't even question if Mike Tomlin ended up benching Kenny Pickett for Mason Rudolph or Mitch Trubisky, because none of those guys on the bench can be any worse than Kenny Pickett. You know, he had a moment in this game when he kind of got in rhythm. He went 5 for 5, but it didn't last too long. Kenny Pickett just isn't good. And you can blame Matt Canada. You can blame the offensive line. But at the end of the day, Kenny Pickett is just not a good quarterback right now. And I don't think the play calling was that bad. I mean, what plays can you call when your quarterback is overthrowing wide receivers that are only 6-7 yards downfield? Kenny Pickett consistently overthrows wide receivers on short passes when they're open, on out routes. Like, he just isn't it at quarterback. And it was a major whiff to draft Kenny Pickett in the first round. This is really how the Steelers transition from Big Ben to Kenny Pickett. I'm surprised that the Steelers are even in this position right now when they're 6-4 and they possibly have the worst starting quarterback out of all the teams that are fighting for a spot in the playoffs in the AFC right now. Even if the Steelers do get into the postseason, they're not going to be anything more than an early first-round exit when they're probably going to get blown out. This defense can only do so much. The defense forced the interception, and yet, you know what the Steelers did with it? Those fools went 3 and out. The only thing about the Steelers offense that was working was Jaylen Warren. He was the MVP of this game for the Steelers offensively. They might as well have just handed Jaylen Warren the ball every single play. Hell, in 3rd and long situations, you were better off running it with Jaylen Warren than you were attempting to throw it with Kenny Pickett. The only pass that Kenny Pickett threw well in this game were them damn screen passes to Jaylen Warren. We need to see more of those screen passes to Warren, because that's the only pass that Kenny Pickett knows how to throw with accuracy. This offense is dreadful. I don't get how Mike Tomlin can stand on the sideline and just be okay with what the fuck he's seeing out of this offense. I can go make me a bag of ramen noodles, put that thing on the stove, come back, let it cook 6-7 minutes later, and come back to the Steelers offense, still not doing anything. This offense is the only team in the NFL that can make a 3 and out take so long. Sometimes their 3 and outs are really fast, but sometimes their 3 and outs take like 2-3 minutes. And even when they are moving the ball, it feels like they aren't moving the ball, if that makes sense. This is just a terrible offense, and the Steelers' offenses have been really bad over the last couple of years, ever since they got rid of Todd Haley. But this is the worst that this offense has been under Mike Tomlin ever. And I'm still trying to figure out how the Steelers are figuring out ways to win games just solely based on defense. You know what they say? Sometimes a good offense is a great defense. If the Steelers' defense can't force turnovers, this offense has no chance. The Pittsburgh Steelers' 2 best players offensively this year have been Jaylen Warren and Chris Boswell, because Chris Boswell is the only player who's putting up points consistently for this team. You know, I saw a stat posted by CBS Sports earlier that said that Kenny Pickett has the lowest touchdown ratio or lowest touchdown percentage out of any quarterback in the last couple of years who has thrown at least 500 attempts or more. His touchdown percentage is 1.9%. That's terrible. And you can only put so much blame on Matt Canada. What is bringing in a better offensive coordinator going to do to make Kenny Pickett any better than what he already is. At best, he goes from one of the bottom 4 quarterbacks in the league to maybe a top 23 quarterback in the league. I mean, that's better than what you're getting out of him right now, but changing those seeds isn't going to make Kenny Pickett any better than what he already is right now. This dude just sucks. He's not good, and I never was on board with the decision to draft Kenny Pickett. I still wanted Malik Willis. At least Malik Willis has way more upside than Pickett. Now, of course, that would have been a bad decision also, but I'd rather draft a guy with potential than draft a guy who just isn't it. At Pitt, he was the hometown kid, I guess, because he played his college ball in Pittsburgh's back door. So they saw this dude and they evaluated this dude. But sometimes it doesn't take long to figure out quarterbacks who have it and quarterbacks who don't have it. And normally, I'm not quick to call somebody a bust only 2 seasons in, but it's safe to say that Kenny Pickett doesn't look good. At best, he's a backup quarterback, and he can be a solid backup quarterback. But as a starting quarterback, he just isn't going to cut it. And the Steelers are never going to win a Super Bowl with Kenny Pickett at the helm at quarterback. You see, this offense, watching them play today, was like cutting teeth on a chalkboard. It was painful to watch. They're better off running that motherfucker on 3rd down than they are trying to throw with Kenny Pickett. The only thing they need to try to throw with Kenny Pickett are those damn screen plays and bubble screens. That's about it. You see, yes, the offensive coordinator's job is to put a young QB in position to win, but at the same time, a good quarterback makes the guys calling the plays look better than what they are. Kenny Pickett makes Matt Canada look even more abysmal than what he truly is. Now, Matt Canada, he doesn't help the situation either, but at least the run game has improved. At least now the Steelers can have something to lean on offensively. There was a point this season when the Steelers couldn't throw it or run it. The run game has been there for the Steelers for the last couple of weeks, and they're going to have to lean on that run game even more throughout the rest of this season, because this passing attack with Kenny Pickett at the helm just is not it. The Browns defense is really good, but I don't think it's that good when Kenny Pickett is out there overthrowing wide receivers who are open on slants and simple drag routes. He's been doing this shit all season long. He just isn't it. He's a tough quarterback. He's going to fight through injuries. His best play was when he got that quarterback sneak on 4th and 1. And they get that quarterback sneak on 4th and 1, and they didn't do anything with it. They ended up punting the ball later on. That's when I said earlier, sometimes when you watch the Steelers offense, they can only be on the field for a couple of plays, and it still takes like 2-3 minutes for them to get up off the field. And they take 2-3 minutes of game clock off the clock, and yet they aren't driving the ball downfield. The most the Steelers get is like 20 yards at best in certain moments. Most of the times, this offense just is completely terrible. This offense in this game, they look as bad as what they've looked all year long. And yes, the Browns do have the best defense in the NFL, but this offense didn't make this defense look any worse than what they have been. This has been an incredible defense. We can't deny that. But this Steelers offense made this defense look even better with the way they played. And it mainly is due to Kenny Pickett. When you're in games like this, going against a great defense, you need good quarterback play. You need to be able to lean on your franchise quarterback, the guy who you invested a 1st-round pick into. The decision to draft Kenny Pickett was one that I was never on board with. And when he had a little bit of success his rookie season, people came at me and they was like, oh, well, you were wrong about Kenny Pickett. Was I really? I may have been wrong about who we should have drafted and taken Malik Willis, but it's not like any of those other quarterbacks are better. Kenny Pickett just sucks. It doesn't matter who you bring in as the OC. Kenny Pickett, at best, will be a top 23 quarterback with the functional offensive coordinator. Matt Canada, his play calling hasn't been that bad the last couple of weeks. Kenny Pickett has made it look bad. Because what do you want Matt Canada to call when Kenny Pickett can't even hit a simple wide open wide receiver 4 or 5 yards down the field off a drag or crossing route? I thought the Steelers would at least be able to win this game because they were going up against a rookie quarterback. And I thought that with the way DTR played against the Ravens, Kenny Pickett will play good enough for the Steelers to win this game. And they didn't really need too much out of him. But Dorian Thompson-Robinson looked better than Kenny Pickett in this game. At least he can hit wide receivers open on short routes. I'd rather have Dorian Thompson-Robinson at quarterback than watch another down of Steelers football with Kenny Pickett at the helm at quarterback. This dude just isn't it. I like him as a person. He definitely is somebody who I would love to have a drink with, and the teammates like him also. But when you're not performing on the field, who cares about how likable you are? Who cares about your toughness? Toughness doesn't win games all the time. At the end of the day, it's a passing league. You're not going to win games just making a 4th and 1 off a QB sneak. Yeah, he showed a lot of heart, a lot of guts. He's playing through injuries, but he's not good at all. You're better off throwing out Mitchell Trubisky or Mason Rudolph fully healthy than you are throwing a 70% Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett is a big reason why the Steelers lost this game today. Another reason why they lost this game is because the special teams sucked. Presley Harvin, he had a 20-yard punt at one point during this game, and it gave the Browns favorable field position. And when your offense is struggling and you're relying on your defense, field position is everything. And the Browns did a way good job at flipping the field than what the Steelers did. Presley Harvin is not that good. The Steelers defense is able to get a stop or a turnover. The offense comes out there and Presley Harvin is right back on the field, making things difficult for the defense. Now you got the defense in a situation when they got to make a stand when they're already in an unfavorable situation because the Browns are getting good field position at the 50-yard line or better. The Steelers fall to 6-4 with this loss. I never felt the Steelers were going to make it to the postseason this year, even as a Steeler fan, because this offense just is that bad and Kenny Pickett is not good. Now, the fact that they're 6-4 and they got to play the Bengals, the Cardinals, the Patriots, and the Colts, you still have a lot of reason to be optimistic if you're a Steelers fan. But me personally, I'm still not optimistic about our chances of making it to the playoffs because when you have an offense this bad, it doesn't matter if Joe Burrow isn't playing. The Bengals offense may be slightly better than Pittsburgh's without Joe Burrow playing, and they got Jay Browning at quarterback. And anytime your offense is bad and you're winning games based on defense, there's not a single game that you can really look at and say, oh yeah, that's a guaranteed win. Okay, the Cardinals aren't a guaranteed win. Neither are the Patriots or Colts. When your offense sucks and you got to win games this way based on a hard-nosed defense and your franchise quarterback can't hit an open wide receiver that's only 4 or 5 yards downfield, you can't look at any game and be like, oh yeah, like that's a guaranteed win. We should win that game. Like, I'm really concerned as a Steeler fan about our chances of being able to hold on to this playoff spot that we have right now. We're holding on to that thing for life support. And even if we do make it, we're not going to be anything more than an early playoff exit unless we're playing up against the Browns or somebody who doesn't have a good offense. But Kenny Pickett isn't it, and this game confirms what I've been saying about Kenny Pickett ever since we drafted him. He just doesn't have it. In late game situations, he can kind of elevate his game, but he didn't do that in the fourth quarter. In the fourth quarter, he didn't look like the Kenny Pickett that we've seen previously in certain games when he's been able to somewhat elevate his play to a degree to put the Steelers in situations to win. In this game, he just was going up against too good of a defense, and he's just too pedestrian of a quarterback to make plays against an elite defense like the way the Browns have all season long. They made plays on defense in this game. Their secondary was shutting things down. They were getting after Kenny Pickett. And Kenny Pickett, he doesn't have great decision-making. Even though he doesn't turn the football over, there were chances when he had to push the ball down the field, and he was just reluctant to do it. You know, Kenny Pickett, anytime you have a quarterback that's struggling this badly up to this point in his career, it doesn't really matter who the OC is. At this point, you should just be looking at Kenny Pickett if you're Mike Tomlin and trying to survive with him for the remainder of this season and looking at drafting his replacement in the draft or trying to find a solution in free agency. But Kenny Pickett is not the answer as the long-term quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Browns win 13-10. They improve to 7-3 on the season. The Steelers fall to 6-4. Give your comments on this game down in the comment section down below. Remember to check out the JT Sports Podcast. We're not just a YouTube channel. Every episode of the podcast is available in audio format on all podcasting platforms. Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast from. You can find the JT Sports Podcast.